Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you everyone for joining. It's a very cold, snowy evening, so I'm surprised to see so many people here. Surprised and happy because this is an important discussion that we need to have about where we are on just the state of our co-op, where we are financially, and why this rate case is needed at this time. And really, most importantly, what the rate case covers and how it's going to work. So if you have any questions throughout it, please just let me know and we'll stop and discuss it. So the regulatory requirements set the pace and the requirements for how we change our rates. The rates were approved to be proposed to the members at the December meeting of the Fox Islands Electric Board of Directors. Our rate change cannot be more than 15% of our annual operating revenue, not including the fuel adjustment. So the 15%, 2023, our annual operating revenue, excluding energy and transmission, was about 1.9 million. So our rate change limit is $299,262. Based on the calculations we did, the capital spending that we need to do, and where we're at with our revenue levels, we determined we need about 11%, which is $219,458. And this is based on a cooperative finance corporation. They are a cooperative nonprofit bank that we work with. They did forecasting work for us and for our upcoming expenses and capital borrowing that we're going to need to do. So we have revenue requirements in three main areas. The first is our energy costs. And this is an actual monthly cost, and it's based on the actual cost of generation from Fox Islands Wind, our diesel generator, and the ISO New England energy market, anything we purchase from the market. The energy cost is a pass-through cost. So every month, the energy rate on your bill is the actuals plus true up from the month before. It's based on initial numbers, and once those numbers are audited and approved, it's usually 2 months later. So we true it up if there's anything that was off balance, but this is at an actual cost rate. Transmission costs, actually getting the energy to the islands, is also a pass-through cost. It is based on the actual monthly cost, and the sources of our transmission costs are from the CMP wheeling charges. So CMP receives our power at the Park Street substation in Rockland, and we use the CMP system. They wheel it to our Glen Cove switching station in Rockport, and then that comes across our transmission line to us. So there's a charge for that. And then the ISO New England energy market, where we receive service from them at Park Street substation, and that's based on their open access transmission tariff that is approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
What does ISO stand?
Independent Service Organization for New England. So all the New England states are joined together for transmission, and ISO New England runs the energy market and the transmission lines, operates the transmission lines. And then this is what we're talking about tonight, and that is the delivery costs on our bill. This is all of the costs that FIEC incurs to run the business. Labor, insurance, maintenance, which materials, parts, construction activities, principal interest on our debt, depreciation, technology, the cost of our computers, the software, the customer service portals, all the office costs, our vehicles, equipment, our regulatory costs, all of the reports that we need to file each year, all of the subscriptions that we need to have, public policy costs, which we're going to talk a little bit more about what that entails tonight. It's really everything except for the energy and transmission. So tonight, this is the pool of costs that we're going to be talking about. The energy costs, which includes Fox Islands Wind, is a separate discussion. Fox Islands Wind is a separate company. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. and it has separate books. We file consolidated financials at the end of the year, but it operates independently of Fox Islands Electric. So the decision on whether to repower the turbines, whether to accept the grant that we've been awarded to put in a potential solar array on the landfill, those are all separate discussions that have separate financial considerations, separate facts, and we're going to be talking about all of that in other meetings. So tonight, we're really talking about the Fox Islands Electric side. Because if we did not have our community-owned cooperative, if we did not have this company to provide the system to deliver services, this would not be a locally governed utility. There wouldn't really be a local voice. Most likely, we would have to be operated by CMP, which also means that we wouldn't have our own crew to maintain the system and restore during outages. CMP, most likely, because we're such a small service territory, would not have an office out here. They would send people back and forth on the ferry for our system. So one of the considerations tonight that we have to look at is that we have our own community-owned nonprofit utility, and we have to properly fund that. We have to keep that company going. I mean, the other option is basically to sell out to CMP and not have any community oversight or decision as to what we do with our utilities out here. So this is all the Fox Islands Electric side tonight. And I'm going to start it with that, qualifying that we have 11 customers per mile to pay for the same type of system that CMP has about 120 customers per mile. So with our lower population out here, it is going to be more expensive to provide the facilities that we have. Oops. So our delivery revenue requirement is all the cost that is necessary to build, operate, and maintain the system. It is now collected through two charges, the monthly minimum charge and the delivery charge. We are proposing an increase to the monthly minimum charge, and I'll go over those proposals. The delivery charge, there's no changes to that. And we are proposing a new capacity charge, which we're going to talk about in depth tonight. Again, we're nonprofit, consumer-owned utilities. We don't have shareholders. Nobody is getting a return on equity. All of our costs are paid by our customers. All of the benefits of the system are for the customers. Up here, I am a member of Fox Islands Electric. I have my name on an account too, so I am not immune from this. These charges affect me as well, and they affect everyone that governs our system, both on the Fox Islands Electric Board and the Fox Islands Wind Board, who are also member customer owners of Fox Islands Electric. So the proposed rate increase is to fund principal and interest on debt. We need to have a certain margin, a difference between revenue and cost, to maintain all of our loan covenants on our existing debt. We have about $7.5 million of debt outstanding right now. We have approval for up to $25 million in debt. Right now, I'm not saying let's take on a lot more debt just because we have the capacity to. We want to maintain a good ratio of equity to debt. Right now, that's about 31% equity to debt. And then our increased operational costs and our needed construction projects. The primary construction projects on our list right now are our two lines that are submarine lines underneath the thoroughfare between North Haven and Vinyl Haven. This one, our transmission cable, is a 35 kV cable that was put in 1976. The cable from Narrow Place Beach to the mainland was replaced in 2004. I always get confused if it's 4 or 6, but in 2004. This section right here was not replaced during that time. And last May 10th, We had a fault in that cable. It was probably caused by some kind of dredging equipment, anchor, hook, something like that going through there. It is marked on the channel, it's marked on the maps, but it did get cut. This was about a $250,000 repair that needed to happen. When that happened, we found that our insulation on the line has been degraded to a point where the line does need to be replaced. This is about a $4 million project. The other line is the 12.47 kV distribution cable. Now we bring market power over through the other transmission cable to Vinyl Haven to our substation, and then send power back at distribution voltage back to North Haven. And right now, our line to North Haven is on the tip of Telegraph Point right here. And where they put it, it actually becomes an island during storms, and it's very difficult to get to, and it's susceptible to a lot of severe weather. And if there are issues there and we can't get out there for a storm, the whole island, that's the only source of power to North Haven. So we are proposing to bring that into Browns Cove. That replacement needs to happen fairly soon too, as about the same time as the other replacement, but that replacement is about 1.4 million. It is a smaller cable because it's distribution voltage. But still, these are big projects that we need to finance that are on our list soon. So we are proposing a monthly minimum charge increase for residential customers that are here year-round, that use similar amounts of power in the summer and the winter. It is a $4.50 increase per month, up to $19.50. CMP just increased theirs to $26 a month. So all utilities are increasing this because it is a fixed charge that applies equitably to all customers. For peak period residential, it's going up, and these are customers that use the majority of their power in the summer and not in the winter. So there's revenue coming from these seasonal accounts in the summertime, but not as much in the wintertime. So with every customer, we incur about $75 of cost per month just to have the meter there, whether power is used or not. So seasonal customers who don't use as much power year-round don't pay into the system as much, so therefore they have a higher minimum monthly charge. Their monthly charge is going up $9.50 to $49.50. Commercial and tax-free commercial, there are only two of these. These are the water districts, are going from $30 a month to $38.50. And large commercial customers who use more than 18,000 kilowatt hours a year are going from $150 to $164.50. So the amount of additional revenue for this monthly minimum charge increase is anticipated to be about $160,000, $163,000. So we already talked about $75 a month to provide service. So part of this cost is recovered through the monthly minimum charge with the revenue. Some of our fixed cost is also through the delivery charge. Delivery charges are not going to change. They are staying fixed where they are. The last part of the revenue cost is going to come through a new capacity charge. So basically, what is capacity? Fox Islands Electric needs to operate, maintain, and upgrade the electric system to deliver the highest amount of energy that customers could ever use. If everybody in our service territory started a load wash, turned on their dryer and their dishwasher and every light in their house at the same time, Fox Islands Electric would need to be able to provide that without notice, without blowing any circuits, without having any system failures, having enough transformers to handle that. Our entire system needs to be built to about 3 megawatts of capacity by 2030. Our historical peak is about 2.5 megawatts, and that happened in February of 2023. It was that first weekend in February when we had negative 60-degree wind chill, if anyone remembers that. We started peaking on our power right up there. So capacity is really ability. Yes. Oh, do you remember?
No.
Was not a very good memory. Our crew was out there, of course, handling some ice that had damaged some facilities, and they really couldn't be outside for more than 3 to 5 minutes before getting into the trucks and getting warm. It was brutal. That was a significant storm. We had to use the backup generator, and it really couldn't hold all of our systems. So that's actually still a different discussion on the generation Fox Islands electric side, or Fox Islands wind side, with Fox Islands wind and the generator in the market. But that is very much on our list and some of the projects that we're working on to guarantee reliable service there. So, but capacity is basically ability. Is the system built to be able to handle the amount of electricity that our customers are going to demand at any one moment? Fox Islands Electric has to build that system, even if it doesn't sell a single kilowatt hour. So having money collected in a capacity charge where people share the cost of the system makes more sense now than in a kilowatt hour charge. So let's dig down into that a little more. Really, it is our capacity that is determining our system growth at this time, not our kilowatt hours. In this chart, you see that the blue bar is actually our kilowatt hour sales. You can see that our sales increased dramatically in 2021 because during COVID, we had quite a few people come and use their homes that were typically not year-round customers. So 2021 is a bit of an anomaly. But you can see on all the other years, the capacity, the kWh sales, slowly increasing. Now the orange is the kWh actually delivered. So the difference between those is the offset by net energy billing. So net energy billing, people with rooftop solar offset the kilowatt hours they receive with generation, extra generation that they deliver to the cooperative and bank for later. The payment is a full offset of both energy and delivery costs, not just energy, even though the rooftop solar, the net energy billing, they're just delivering energy. They're not buying or giving any system costs. They're not providing any of that system, but they get the value of that credit. The value of that credit in 2018 and 19 was not as big of a deal. But when you look at the amount of net energy billing that we have in our system, we have over 5% of our customers now that have net energy billing. Of our peak capacity, this year it will be between 17 and 18% of our peak capacity is installed solar. But the solar doesn't deliver during our peak. So this dotted line is, and the gray is the specific, but the dotted line, our peak capacity keeps increasing and our sales are going flat or even decreasing a little bit because there's a considerable amount of offset from net energy billing. So if we were to increase cost on our delivery side, we would be increasing the rates for only customers that didn't have net energy billing. So to increase rates equitably, we already have a cost shift. The customers without rooftop solar are paying more than their fair share of the system because the customers with net energy billing are usually zeroing out on their offset each month. So they're just paying their monthly minimum. So to address this, we have to address this and equitably raise rates in a way that impacts all of our customers equitably. So as we're looking, the delivery charge was offset 321,551 kilowatt hours that Fox Islands Electric actually delivered to net energy billing customers, but they didn't get any compensation for that in 2024 because it was offset. So that amounted to about $46,000 in loss in 2024, just the offset amount. I'm not talking about the overall what net energy customers generate and use in their own system. And I do want to state right now too that Fox Islands Electric is not against net energy billing. Since we are consumer owned, member owned, we should have very flexible policies that allow customers to self-generate if they want to. The only issue here is that everyone who uses the system, is connected to the system, relies on the system, equitably pays for their share of the cost of the system. So that is how this rate is designed. Oh, I stuck this in here because Steven Singer published this about a month ago in the Portland Press Herald, talking about how rooftop solar reduces the demand on the ISO New England grid. But if you see this, all of the demand that is being replaced is during the day. Utilities are not planning and investing in their system to meet this demand. Utilities are working to meet the peak demand. That is what we have to design the system to. That's how we have to maintain and operate the system to be able to meet this demand. And that demand typically always falls between 5 and 8 o'clock at night. When people come home, they cook dinner, they turn on the TV, they throw in a load of laundry, all of those activities that we're so used to doing when we get home from work or just at the end of the day to wrap up. That is when our peak is. And that's when the ISO New England energy market, all of New England peaks. That is what we're designing to. That's what we need to adjust our rates to. But we have to do it with a lot less revenue because we're not selling energy in this third of the day. We're not selling as much energy. So instead of shifting all of those extra costs to just the customers who don't have that energy solar, we looked at the capacity of the system. I'm going to go to this one, the capacity, and I'll come back to those other points. So what is the capacity and what's our share of it and how do we bill for it? This cube represents Fox Islands Electric's peak load during 1 hour of the month. Each customer in here has their little share of the peak load. So for January 22nd, there was about 2,100 kilowatts was our peak load. So this whole cube, and it came at 6 o'clock at night. So this whole cube, we're gonna bill at $6,000. So that $6,000 is broken up between all of these customers depending on what share of the load was theirs, how much they were using in that peak. And we then, 396 is our on peak, June through September, 272 is our residential off peak. So together, we would pay the $6,000. We would pay the cost of that month's system. How we would do that is here are the proposed on-peak and off-peak capacity charges. The on-peak are higher because there are more customers using the system in the summertime. We usually typically always have our peak hour in August. It's in July or August pretty much every single year. We have a higher peak. We have to plan for that higher peak. We have to build to that higher peak. And we have more customers in the summer that are using energy to spread that peak across. On the off peak, there are less customers to spread that off. And we typically usually do have lower peaks in the wintertime. So our capacity charge revenue is about 31,000 on peak and 25 off peak. You would figure this out by basically taking each customer's use during that peak hour, multiplying it by the capacity charge, and then getting your capacity charge for that customer. Between all those customers having a portion of that pie according to how much they're using, you result with about $6,000 that month. So customer A uses 0.6 of a kilowatt. When you multiply that by the off-peak capacity charge in January, you get the bill, $1.63 would be on their bill. Customer B is, most of our customers fall between A and B. I'll just put that out there. Most customers are getting charged between $1 and $2 under this. Customer B uses 1.65 kilowatts. That would yield a $4.49 charge. Customer C uses 2.4 kilowatts, and their charge would equal $6.53. Now, I have spreadsheets and everything that with our new metering system, I know what everyone's demand is. After the meeting, if you would like me to look up your address, please let me know. You can also email us and say, just ask, what would my charge be? How would I be billed underneath this? And that capacity charge we anticipate is going to generate about $56,000 a year in revenue. Now, when we look at how this is calculated, in January, we got 6/10,000ths of a kilowatt from net energy billing customers. Our peak is usually when we're not getting any energy from rooftop solar. So this is a way to equitably take what people are using, what their share of the peak is. If I'm designing the system for everybody, I can equitably charge everyone according to the piece of the system that they need, that serves them, in a way that is not based on your total kilowatt hours at the end of the month. So right now, capacity costs are currently built into the energy and delivery rate. So if you can offset your energy and delivery rates, you really don't pay for the capacity, even though you use the system and you rely on the system. So this capacity charge introduces the concept that each customer pays for the fixed cost of the system that serves their needs. We're nonprofit, we don't have shareholders, nobody's making a lot of money off of us. We are all in this together and we're all paying for it together. It also recognizes that if we have a proliferation of rooftop solar and everyone decides to go with rooftop solar, nobody is going to be paying for the system. There's going to be no one left to do that. So it's this concept that utilities like Fox Islands Electric, it's foreseeable in the future that we become just a wires company, just an infrastructure company, and you pay to use the system. Very much like sometimes with the internet and platforms and apps, you're paying to use the system, to have access to connect to it, but you don't actually own a piece of the system, or you're not actually using it to deliver your own products. Instead of getting just a product, it's more just a delivery system, a storage system, a way to keep your own electricity stable and reliable at your house. So we used to go from the more kilowatt hours you use, it meant that you use the system more and the more you should pay. That's not necessarily true anymore, because it doesn't really matter what you use if you offset it with your own generation. So we're now everybody, and everyone should pay for how much of the system that they use, even if they net out to zero. And the fixed cost of having a system there when they want to use it. So these two ideas are linked, the capacity being something that everyone needs if you're interconnected to the system. And I'm going to pause there because I do have a couple questions. I think one of the questions, I'd like to see the data to support your statement that solar self-generating customers only end up paying their connection charge. In 4 years, I think we've had 3 months where our only charge was the connection charge. I can absolutely provide that data. Most of the systems do offset a lot. And I mentioned that the rates were approved in December. Which December? The rates were approved to present to the customers in December of 2024. Our board, our Fox Islands Electric Board, just approves the rate to present them to the customers and present them to the Maine Public Utilities Commission. The Maine Public Utilities Commission is the commission that ends up approving them completely. But we do have that board. Yes.
If we're breaking for questions.
Yeah.
On the capacity calculation, you take the moment when your system, our system, runs at capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And then you check everybody's meter to see how much they drew at that hour.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So it basically equals 100% of the peak when you look at everybody's meter at that time.
Because our meters capture data every 15 minutes?
Yes.
maybe?
Every 15 minutes.
At every location?
Mm-hmm. So the peak capacity is recorded at Glen Cove. It's also recorded on our border, and it's also recorded by CMP, and it's recorded by our meters, and then it's recorded by our system meters on each house. So the question earlier, I do want to get back to, I can provide data on everybody's account. When we're looking back, and I'll provide independent data as well, because it does vary per customer. When you look at these earlier systems, they were mostly sized to meet 90 to 100% of the customer's needs. Customers that have been coming in recently are building bigger than they need. So they are forfeiting energy at the end of the year, but it's not really a forfeit. The customer doesn't get the value of that. Fox Islands Electric has to pay for the energy value, the transmission and distribution value, and they pay it to the state treasury, and it goes into the low income assistance program. So this year our check was about $12,000, somewhere around there, in extra costs that in the earlier laws that it would be about $1,400, the value of just that energy that we received, that would just it would go away. Nobody would get the benefit of that. The co-op kind of used that to offset some of the losses of the program. But recently, well, not recently, but the law passed that the value of that needs to go to the state. So it did increase the losses that we're receiving under the program. But I can definitely pull up anybody's records or account and take a look at it. Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit about how larger utilities deal with the same problem?
Yes, I can. CMP and Versant call it a public policy charge now, and they're investor owned. Under the laws, they cannot have any charges or any value that the Public Utilities Commission won't let them recover. So they just recover the lost value of this through a public policy charge. That public policy charge is between, I think, $8 and $10 a month on each of their customers' bills. It's even more for their commercial customers that have larger bills. There are 2 net energy billing laws right now being considered in the legislature to completely repeal the program. I'm not in favor of completely repealing the program. I believe that customers should be able to generate if they'd like to, but it needs to go to where they're not avoiding the fixed cost of the system, that they're paying their fair share and getting the benefit and the full fair value of the energy that they have. But basically every utility just shifts the cost to other customers. I mean, we have to. And CMP and Versant, their shareholders are not going to pay for these costs. It's built into their rates.
Also, just a follow-up, when we got our system, we were required to put a gross meter head in,
Mhm.
and it's never been used. Would the use of that would be to collect the full data of what we use?
Well, it probably would be. Fox Islands Electric doesn't really see your gross output of your system. So I can only really estimate what you might be generating and using in your house. I don't see that portion. I only see the portion that is delivered to Fox Islands and then offset with redelivered energy. So I only see that outside transaction on your meter. Your gross meter should give you a good idea of how much benefit you're getting and how much of your system that you're covering.
Well, there's nothing
So-
on it, it's just empty.
Oh,
That's why I was wondering.
yeah.
That was there, is that there to collect this data that we need, or?
Well, your developer should have set that up for you.
Well, yeah, they put the head in, but nobody ever put a meter on.
Oh, no, we do have a solar meter, has a little box on it. That's ours. But knowing what your system generates, it tells you how close you are to your net generation. And we're also encouraging rooftop solar generators to have a battery installed. Because if you install a battery and you use your battery during peak periods, you typically can avoid capacity charges all the time. And be basically self-sufficient. So you're not burdening the system and shifting costs to other customers. You're really kind of isolating that. That does help. There's a difference in the power, the energy cost, most that I didn't really talk about too much tonight. And I don't want to hit on it too much because that's more the generation side, the value of the solar power that you're giving us versus what you offset, what we deliver to you, because energy shifts costs during the day. But that's really on our generation side and not tonight.
You just mentioned it, and that was the graph I wanted you to stay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then I go back there.
No, the swimming pool.
Oh, yes. This one. This swimming pool. That's a great the
Well,
pool of sunshine.
how much to really make a difference in what you're having to build towards, which is that
Mm-hmm.
right-hand early evening peak. How much battery capacity would each of the how many people you have? You have rooftop solar at this point? 1,000?
No, not that many. It's about 5% of our system. So
75, 80 customers probably.
mhm.
Okay, so that 100 customers, if they went ahead and put in what? 2 hours worth of battery capacity, 5 hours worth of battery capacity, which would carry you through that.
Mhm.
Well, right, it's, if they're stopping producing solar at 4:14 and our peak is at 5, if they can run off the battery, then bring our peak down.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, but your peak also drives what you have to build for
Yeah.
and plan for.
Yes.
And so if they did that, it would reduce everybody's costs because you wouldn't need as much capital
Yes,
invested and so on.
it would.
Exactly.
Okay.
So installing your own battery, if you have a system, if you have a rooftop system, installing your battery, it could be very helpful to the system as a whole.
And expensive.
And expensive,
Or
yes,
sim-
but
Or simply, between 5 and 8, be a little conscious about the fact, hey, don't turn the dryer on.
Mhm.
You could do it at 8:30.
That works too.
Just shave it down without having to buy a battery.
yes, exactly. And actually the other chart, the swimming pool chart, is probably better to show this. The capacity charge has two different purposes. One is to really charge people based on their use of the system and how much they use the system. So we collectively, all together, through our use as a plumb line, are paying for the system together. The second is to encourage efficiency, energy efficiency, and bring down our peak. This is what we have to build to, and that's what I have to plan to. But unless everybody kind of collectively changes their behavior to bring this down, we have to invest those expensive dollars to make the system work at that level. If we can together invest and change our pattern to bring that peak down, not only will everyone save money on the capacity charge, on the Fox Islands electric side, we can really strategically look at what we have to invest in and maybe spread those investments out longer, save some money on the capital investment side. We also, a happy result of this that has to do with the power side, so what we're not talking about tonight.
Good luck.
Yes. Our capacity charge that we pay, that Fox Islands Electric pays, ISO New England, is based on 1 hour once a year. And that can be the difference of about $150,000 a year. If we come in on like a zero, we're not on the market system at all, we're gonna have a $10 a month capacity charge. If we come on with our full capacity, we're gonna have, what is it, like $18,000-$19,000 a month? It's an expensive capacity charge, and that flows through our energy and transmission rates. So if we can get that collectively down together as a community, we can save money just on our energy rates that way. We also, this is where we are paying peak power costs. I just looked before this meeting started. The system, the ISO New England energy market was about $300 a megawatt. It's an expensive peak time to buy power. If we don't have to buy, and this is also, unfortunately, when our wind dies down and we have nice, beautiful, just breezy evenings. But again, that's talking about a different side. But this is when we need energy the most. If we can bring our use down and conserve them, we're going to buy less expensive market power, which translates to a lower energy price for everyone. So this capacity charge is not only a more equitable way of sharing system costs, it is an encouragement for our customers to be mindful of how we're using energy during peak periods. If you can do your laundry, put in a load at 9 o'clock at night before you go to bed, that's a lot cheaper for the overall system than if you do it at 6:30 at night. So we're going to be talking a lot about energy efficiency and talking to people about this. If you decrease your use of capacity during 5 to 8 o'clock at night, then you're not going to come in with an expensive capacity charge. And if we have enough people to do that, it can make a difference on our system. There are solar customers that we have that have their own batteries and that offset their use during this time. So they are peak shaving and helping us with that. So if anyone is considering putting in a system or has put in a system, that is very beneficial and a way to avoid some capacity charges there.
I won't promise this is the last question, but
yes.
Why didn't a few years ago you were talking about having a time of day metering system?
Yes.
What stopped that?
It hasn't stopped that. This is the first step towards that.
We are collecting the data.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll have another meeting where we talk about how to give financial incentives, not just encouragement.
So right now we have not quite a year of data on our new metering system. So this is a pricing signal to our customers using our meters, the first step. Going to a time of day where we have different possibly delivery energy charges, different times of the day, possibly an EV charging rate that goes like in the middle of the night when there's extra energy on the system, so we can actually pass those savings on to customers. That's kind of the next step in this progression. So we are a very small company, so we kind of have to, it's big, big bites off of the overall problem, but the overall system that we want to get to does have all of that capability in it for consumers. We're just not there yet.
When do nobody knows the future, when do they think the EVs will be well enough equipped that they provide you battery system rather than having
where everyone can have a two-way put in their charger and I can use everybody's cars as a system battery? Yeah, I think there are some small grids that are doing that now. We don't quite have the capability of doing that yet. But it is part of the overall looking at our system. How do we need to build it? What do we need to build to get to peak optimal performance? Hopefully within the next 10 years. It seems like a long time, but it's really not. So I'm just going to check and see if there are any other questions that I missed. Okay, I understand the Foxhound's electric economics, but let's not lose track of the fact that nearly 40% of electric power generated in Maine is lost in transmission. So the extent that we can generate more power where it is consumed is a very desirable goal. And yes, I totally endorse the idea of batteries. We have them on our system and set them up to store and use during peak demand hours. That is wonderful. That's definitely what we need. The overall line loss. Last year we were about 10% of line loss. We used to be at 12, almost 13%. So we've been doing a lot of system maintenance, system repairs, switching, looking at different ways. The new metering system cut down on line losses. Line loss is a huge percent. I don't know if it's 40% in Maine, but right now we're at about 10%. So generating on island definitely saves us money. We lose about 6 to 8% of the generation we send back over the submarine transmission cable or that we purchase from the mainland. And that is more on the power generation side. It's definitely an economic factor. So generating more on the island definitely helps the economics of it. Tonight, though, regardless of where we get our energy, regardless of it from rooftop solar, from winds, from utility scale solar, from batteries, no matter where we get it, if we don't adequately fund the operations of the utility, we're not going to be able to have a utility to make decisions at this level. We need to make sure that we comply with our loan covenants, that we have enough of a margin each year, difference between revenue and cost, that we're keeping up with all of our financial obligations, and that we are doing proper maintenance and repair and operation of the system. So that is what this rate change is for. This is the rate case schedule, everything that's required by statute that we do. And here we are, February 10th, our public hearing. Our final rate case filing will be around February 20th, no earlier than February 20th. Customers can petition, I think 10% of our customers can petition the PUC to do a further dive on all of our data and rate proposal. That is due March 12th. I would encourage you, that would include a lot of extra expense, bringing in consultants. I don't like to spend money unless we really need to spend extra money. I would encourage you to come and look at the data, to ask us these questions. The board has been looking at this type of charge for about 1.5 years now. We've delved down into all different types of options and where we wanted to go. The board's main principles were that the rate change is equitable and is applied equitably, and it's appropriate for the revenue level that we need. Not more, not less. That is the right target of revenue. So our board meetings are open to the public. Anyone can come and talk. I am available to talk through this rate case with any questions that you have. The proposed effective date is, no joke, April 1st. That's an unfortunate date for the proposed effective date. But it's the first billing that you would actually see a capacity charge and the new minimum charge being applied would be in May of this year. And that is the end of my prepared comments. Questions? Yes.
So if this went through and then the line was here, would you then encourage people to get solar?
Probably not encouraged. The question was, if this went through and the capacity charge went through and everything, would I encourage people to get solar? Probably not, because it costs so much less and it's so much more affordable to do a utility scale solar. We've on the Fox Islands wind side, we've looked at a lot of different data with the solar, and it costs about 4 cents a kilowatt hour to do solar at a utility scale project. And it's also something that the utility can monitor and control and possibly pair the battery. For rooftop solar, it costs whatever the cost of power is that day, energy and transmission. So, and then delivery all in about 32 cents a kilowatt hour. I think we're at 32 to 34 cents a kilowatt hour. So the cost of rooftop solar to the system as a whole is just too expensive to encourage from a utility scale. Where if we put in a solar that could operate to help us shave our summer peak and provide peak during peak power during our peak population, it would probably be about 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So for the overall best of the customers, which is what my job is, to try to balance everybody's interests, but really make the decisions and recommendations to the board that's in the best of all of our customers as a whole, I probably wouldn't encourage it, but I wouldn't be so against it. Are there any other questions? Wow, it got quiet when that furnace went off. So I am available. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my spreadsheets. If you're curious what your capacity charge would have looked like in January, I can pull that up and see. We are just encouraging people to work together. We're really all in this together. This is our company. We have to properly fund it, but we also make decisions through the democratic process of electing our board of directors. We have elections every July where a third of our board is elected every July at the annual meeting. All these decisions are local decisions. So let's work together and resolve this. It really isn't about rooftop solar being for or against it. It's about making our rates equitable for all the customers that we have. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks. I'll stick around a while if anyone has any questions. Thanks for attending online.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.